did you think of
Jagame? Let's give it a go. Jagame Thandhiram.
Jagame Thandhiram?
Okay. Sound like you're saying a bad word for the first time in your life. Okay, cool. What do I think? I found the film really enjoyable. I really liked that it was quite pacey at times. It had a good mixture of action. It was a bit funny. It also had a little bit of heart towards the latter part of the movie. So overall, it was a good mix. It did feel a little bit long, but it wasn't such an issue. Yeah. How about yourself?
For me, it felt like part two and part one put together. Because usually,
Right.
what happens after that first initial like slicing, you'd say it's the end of the movie in a typical Tamil movie. But this was like two parts put together, so that's something I really liked. Because it's interesting how you say it's long. Because I wanted it to last as long as it can, because I wanted more, basically.
Oh, fair enough. I think in terms of the length, I wouldn't say it was necessarily an issue. I think I just personally found it a little bit tiring, but that could also be due to the fact I was watching it a bit late. Like I never found it, I never found myself looking at the time and being like, oh, I wonder what time it is. Or never felt like I should forward bits. So overall, yeah, I thought the movie was, yeah, it was good. And I like what you meant with first half, second half. Like it did feel all connected.
I watched it at, I started watching it basically at like 1. So I went to bed at 3:30.
Oh my God. That's okay. So clearly I have no excuse because I was done with the movie by about 1:30.
Personally, I really like Dhanush. I like his movies already, most of the movies. And this was like one of those that kind of gives you those Rajini vibes where it's like you just feel so much hype for the main actor.
Yeah, that's true. Like he had a lot of swag, and especially his opening scene, I really liked how they did it. Like especially the way they shot it. It seemed like, oh, these two are just like chatting by a car, and then you realize what's going on. And you're like, oh shit, that's pretty sick. Like with
It's
how
so
he's like
funny.
stopping a whole train.
The way like he's just casually just there waiting for the train to stop, but we're just like, wait, why is this guy not like moving? Like he's coming at pace, and then you realize, oh, they want him to come in and check the trains or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Like how like the train driver was like, oh, just hurry up with it. And you're just like, I liked how they did that. Like just like you could really tell they did that for real. It wasn't like CG. So it just makes me wonder how scared like Danish was with seeing this train just like inches from his face.
That's true. I haven't even thought about that.
Yeah. That was like one of the first things that popped in my mind. Was like, wonder how many times they had to do that. It was interesting with his character though. I thought like he was a really dislikable guy. Like I was watching it, and I was like, he's such a dislikable dude. Like I don't really see the like why does everyone like him? And then it was only as the movie progressed, and I was like, actually, I'm getting into this, like his vibe, like I'm liking his vibe, and he's a bit happy-go-lucky, and I think one of the characters says he's a bit of a wild cannon or something. And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, they really did that well. And then
Yeah.
after he gets into his accident and he changes, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, like he redeems himself.
It's interesting how you say he wasn't very likable, but I think for me it was a different opinion. It was more like he gave that Joker vibe where he's the worst of the worst, but then because of his villainous, it's really
I know.
you kind of like the character for that because he's just like that pure, like he doesn't give a shit basically, like especially the scene where
Yeah,
like like when he actually betrays the Tamil people, yeah, you're like you're like, oh, that's unexpected. Like that's the pure like evilness because it's like it's nothing personal. It's a matter of fact, and that's like yeah, there it is, isn't it? That's his character.
yeah, no, you're right. Like that bit where he does betray them, because at the time you don't realize it's like this whole Tamil Elam thing with on the other guy's side, Sivados's
Yeah.
side. But then you're just like, oh, that's just a tactical move, and you see like Dhanush's evil smile, and you're like, yeah, cool.
What did you think of that scene? Since we're on this, what did you think of that
Oh,
scene where it was
the
spinning?
rotation,
Yeah.
huh? Oh,
Yeah.
I loved it. I was like, that's a smart way of doing it. It's really cool, and like you could really tell as each turn they did it, like gradually, the power dynamic is shifting. And you're like, that's really cool. Speaking of that scene, I feel like we should do a shout out for that guy Sivados's amazing catching abilities. Like when that guy threw him his gun, it was just like it was just like, what? That was some mad catch.
Yeah, that was actually pretty sick.
That scene, that I really like that scene, how they did it, and like how like it seemed very low key, and also I really liked how they paid a tribute to like classic gangster movies. Like that scene was really similar to The Godfather. Like it's interesting because like it's not like a typical Tamil gangster movie where might have like some dude walking around with like a knife on his back, and like like he sees some girl in the temple or some shit like that. It was like it felt like a very mixed Anglo Tamil gangster movie, and they did that really well. Yeah, like it was like I wouldn't say it's like super smart. Like it's not like a smart movie with all these like intricate twists and turns,
It still
but it's
got
just a
that
fun.
that
Yeah,
sense of like power, like what's the word for it?
you feel like you have a bit of swag with this.
Yeah, swag. Basically swag, I guess. Yeah, it still got that Tamil swag. Basically, that's what it is.
It's probably like the worst use of the word swag, but we can go with.
I don't know how else to describe it.
No, but I get what you like. After watching, you do feel like a bit like, oh yeah, I want to just like kind of live that sort of life, and you want to be like similar to these characters. What did you think of other bits like the acting and stuff?
Oh, the thing is, yeah. I honestly, when it started, I wasn't like I found it a bit hard to settle into the movie personally, just because I think because obviously I'm from London, and then I'm also Tamil, so then it's like you know what it's meant to be like in English, so you know what they're trying to go for. So there is still that awkward phase of trying to accept that okay, these are not actually English people, trying to like, as in it's not a movie from so like you could kind of sense that it was an English movie.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like it felt like, especially at the start of the film, it took me a
Yeah,
while to
you
kind
know
of
what
get into
line
the
that
dubbing.
really clicked it? Like, oh, why are you calling my bird's phone?
Oh yeah,
I was like, who says that? Who says, oh, don't call my bird's phone?
I don't know many people who would say that, but I was just like, is that really what they're really going with? But okay, and it seemed really it seemed a bit jarring as well, because you could tell like they obviously re-recorded that, and it seemed just a bit off. So it took me a while to get used to that. So then like when this guy is just like yelling and going fuck and this and that, I was like, you wanker. I was like, seriously?
You're just trying to get used to that basically because it didn't feel right at first, but then you kind of once you settle in you forget, okay, you get over that, oh, that's what they're doing, and then you kind of more into the storyline and what's happening.
Yeah, that's really true. Like after that first initial scene, I think that was like the worst. But then after that, I got used to it, and I was like, okay, fine, that's cool. And I think that one character, the Peter character, they did him really well. Like his voice matched with what he was saying, and like the words, like his diction and what he was saying as well made sense to the character. And I thought his acting was like solid.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't he someone from Game of Thrones?
Yeah, he's from Game of Thrones.
What does he do in Game of Thrones?
He is Jorah Mormont's father. So he was the old Lord Commander of the Night. So it's interesting to see this guy who's like so noble in Game of Thrones to be like a complete dickhead in this film. Like the bit where he's like threatening Dhanush and he's like, saying off his one-liners and like it's like fully racist stuff. I was like, whoa, like this is like I really like what they did with that. Like his character is really bad. He's a bad guy. And the actor just played it really well.
Were you worried when when you watch the movie and they start touching on like the racist side of things. Were you worried about what's gonna come up in the movie? Like, were you like, oh shit, they're touching on like sensitive topics?
No, I wouldn't say I was worried. I was more intrigued to see what sort of things they would bring up. And I
Yeah.
like how this movie also touched that. Like, it's not just your typical gangster movie where, you know, some zero to hero sort of thing. Like, they had this like sort of backbone, which was this whole racism immigrant storyline, which I really liked. And
did you notice at the beginning with the number plate, white power? I was like, wow, they really like, they didn't hold back, basically. They didn't hold back at all what they were going for.
And I only noticed this at the end where, there's the last scene where Dhanush and his crew come into Peter's office.
Yeah.
And in the back, Peter has like a KKK uniform and a KKK picture right behind him.
Okay.
Like the white supremacists outfit and the symbols and stuff, like, so it really adds to the character, but they didn't do it in an obvious way where like they didn't have a scene to portray it. It's just there in the background. And I liked how they had that little nod.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's a nice touch.
Did you have any realization, or at what point did you realize that Dhanush was gonna basically betray the guy?
Which guy? The civil guy.
Civil guy.
Honestly, I didn't actually see it coming because I was like, oh, he's now betraying Peter for civil loss. I was like, okay, cool. And then like I didn't actually see it coming, so it was a bit of a surprise when the thing, like when the gun didn't work. So I was like, oh shit, okay, this is a surprise. Why did you see it coming?
I didn't see like that scene coming up, but what I was questioning was, when Siva basically talks to Dhanush, to say, oh, this is this and this. Do you trust me? And then Dhanush was like, yeah, okay, I trust you. Like instantly, my first reaction was, that's so unlike his character to say a dialogue like that. So I just felt like, oh, it's just one of those movies. That was my reaction, like instantly, because I just felt like changing the character to suit the plotline that they want. That's what I felt like it was happening. But then when Dhanush actually brings out his, and then is like laughing and everything, I was like, yes, they brought me right back in.
Yeah, like that whole scene where he gets captured.
Yeah.
I was like, I wasn't the biggest fan of that scene because I was like, oh, it's just like, oh, great, his character's now just changing sides and like he's only doing it for the sake of doing it. And like I wasn't the biggest fan of it. But then when it turns out that was all a lie, like I was like, yes, this is good. Like I'm really into this.
And
I was really see how the consequences of his actions affected so many different people. Yeah. And I like how they portrayed Cyrus as this guy who's like really helping like thousands of people, and they say like hundreds of people are trapped in jail because of you. Yeah. And like you can really feel that impact on Dhanush. Like, oh shit.
I think one thing I was questioning while I was watching the movie was the girl's decision to not kill him, because it didn't make sense to me, because she must have felt like he's just the reason behind like why things happen. But then I think later on I realized, okay, maybe like she understood that from his point of view, like he didn't see that this is that he's doing the wrong things. He's just dealing with life as what he sees it, like he said.
Like I think that's one part of the movie which I think suffered, was like the romance side of it, because it felt a bit jarring in the sense like, oh,
it didn't feel real enough.
Yeah, like maybe it could have been due to the fact the songs got cut in the Netflix version.
But to be honest, when I watched the scene, I was like, oh, this is the cue for the song. And then I was like, okay, carry on. And I was like, I was fine with it because I remembered, like he said, like I remembered all the things that happened in the song and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like the thing is though, like for those people who hadn't seen the songs, Like so.
But come on, Tamil people, of course you're gonna see the song. You're gonna listen to it. It's been out for like who knows how long. If you haven't seen this and you're watching the movie, then you're not basically a Tamil person, then, isn't it?
Wow, harsh words thrown there, spoken by the least Tamil person I know.
Yeah.
But I think one bit though that kind of suffered, like that whole issue was like made obvious, was the bit where he got captured. It was really random, because I think that's where that song where he's singing in London would have come in, and then he gets captured after that, because it was like suddenly like they're dancing at a funeral, and then suddenly Dhanush is captured, and you're like, what happened in between? So I think that's the only bit where I felt like it suffered.
Yeah. Yeah, when out of nowhere he's captured, isn't it? They just skip to the scene, yeah. But I think they don't want to go through the whole flaffle of explaining it and just say, yeah, the guy has enough power to basically get him. I think, like, they don't want to bother wasting time on things that is unnecessary if it's already implied, basically.
Yeah, I guess like they did like somewhat explain it, where they like zoom in on that one guy dancing, and he's thinking back about the people, and like he realizes.
Yeah, honestly, I was actually confused. To be honest, yeah, because you're right. Actually, it is kind of too fast, isn't it? Like so, but then I really liked that scene. I really liked like with the whole slow motion dancing and the music. It just felt really like, whoa, what am I watching here for like a moment? And I went back a couple of times to see it as well because I was like, oh, this is cool. And I was like, did I miss something? Did they show something in between? But they didn't. It's just they were just skipping.
No, there's more implied that like that's probably how he got captured, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, cool.
That he probably remembered him being somewhere and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, this is the guy who was there every single time, and like, yeah, that's how he got captured.
Yeah.
No, but I think, but going back to like the whole romance side of it, I think, yeah, I liked how her character had like a role and a backstory, and like there was like heart with her character. Like it's not like a typical heroine who's just there for like the romance.
Yeah.
So I liked that, and I liked how she yelled at Dhanush, and like she called him out on his bullshit. So it was good, but I just wish they had a bit more scenes to just let that romance develop a bit.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. This is a gangster movie. It's not a romance movie, but at the same time, it would have made more sense if there was at least a couple more scenes where they give a bit more like development. But like they did show like he wants to jump in straight into having a date, like just get to marriage, But yeah.
Like they did show that, and it was nice in that way. But no, but I think like overall, like I liked what they did with her character, and it was good. What were some of the bits you didn't like?
To be honest, yeah, it's hard to say this because I feel like people will be against what I say.
Okay.
But like, basically, I don't like having too many serious scenes in a movie. And like I think I just like I like to enjoy movies. So like this movie I wanted to be like a really hype movie, and yeah, this needed the serious scenes to show you, like make it feel more like real and like visceral and stuff. But the only problem is I feel like it might have been a bit too much for me, like, but then obviously like this is based on like the reality. It's trying to show the reality. This is what people have to deal with and had to deal with before. So like it's kind of needed for this because this is what the whole movie is trying to show. But at the same time, as an entertainment, and like I struggle with that type of thing, and which is actually the reason why I didn't want to do a review on Conan, because that was basically an entirely serious movie which I wouldn't have anything to say about because I basically avoid that type of topic.
And whereas this one, you got, they kind of threw the wool over your eyes, and you're like, oh, entertaining gangster movie. And then suddenly the seriousness, you're like, no.
He's like, no, you tricked me.
It's like, there's so much to talk about. This is entertaining, but there's also this serious element.
What did you think of it?
It's weird because I actually liked the fact they threw in this serious side of this movie. Like it made things a little bit more grounded and it didn't feel like, oh, I'm just watching a typical gangster movie because then I would have felt like, oh, like if they took out that serious side of it, it would have felt like, oh, I'm just watching a typical gangster movie, a rise from zero to hero. But the fact they had that backbone of seriousness, it kind of threw things a bit more into perspective. And
Yeah, I would actually agree with you. It's just the length for me is what I don't like. But I actually agree. Like, if it didn't have that, I totally agree. It wouldn't have the heaviness that the movie had, basically.
yeah, and I think especially like that one song where you see her character coming from Sri Lanka into London and
Yeah.
you see the struggles, like that kind of put things in perspective. And I was like, okay, I'm getting what they're doing with this. But especially with the other two male characters from Silados's gang who are like Sri Lankan, they didn't go overboard with their like backstory and stuff. It was just that they're immigrants, they're refugees, and they're struggling, and
Yeah.
that's it. Um, so yeah, I think overall, like I think that serious side worked because like obviously Peter's character is like this white supremacist racist, and you had this immigrant story coming in, and there's a natural clash, and it like they did it well in my eyes.
What did you think of the romance between Peter and Dhanush?
Yeah, I liked it. It was like I was really surprised how many scenes they shared,
Yeah.
and I was like quite surprised like how often they would be on screen together, and it was actually quite nice to see that one bit where like he gives him that street and they kind of like dance on the street. And I was like, look at this.
Yeah. I feel like that was more for the fans rather than the movie itself because it's like you're seeing the two big actors, just in the same scene.
Yeah, and like like props to the James Cosmo guy to actually committing to, and especially in that one scene, I liked how the music had influence of Tamil and Scottish influences, and it
Oh
like
yeah.
just worked. One character I think maybe could have, maybe I don't know, it could have been developed a bit more was like that guy Vicky, like the translator guy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like I felt like maybe I needed a bit more of him, or just a little bit more like development in his character.
He kind of disappeared in the second half.
I mean, he was there from the start when as soon as Dhanush came into London, but then it was like he would only pop up here and there, and then towards like the end of the movie, he was like he disappeared. But I do like how like there wasn't any like loose ends with the with the movie, and like it didn't seem like, especially like I liked how the ending of the movie, like what they did to Peter's character. It was something I did kind of like predict in my head. I was like, oh, I wonder if they would do something similar, and they did, but it wasn't really a problem for me.
Wait, what did they do again?
They put him abroad in a.
Oh, okay. So you predicted that.
I mean, I had a feeling like I was like, oh, I wonder how it'd be if he felt the effects of like being an immigrant, but I wasn't expecting them to go all the way to like Iran to do that. So I was like, wow, that's like some real commitment to prove this point. But okay, props off to them.
This is basically what everyone wants. Like everyone who's been in that situation wants the other side to feel, basically, to actually like put themselves in that shoe and see how it feels like. So, like this movie kind of makes you feel good in that way.
Like it is all fictional and it is all done in a dramatic movie way. Like, probably none of this is accurate, but it's done in a way where it's at least entertaining, stroke understanding enough where you can actually like digest it to an extent.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you know, for some people it might give them enough information where they would want to like do some research of their own to get some wide understanding of what was going on and what they're like touching upon in this movie.
Yeah.
Like this movie didn't feel overly heavy.
What would you rate it out of 10?
Ooh, okay.
Your reasons as well.
I would give it a 7.5.
7.5. Oh, that's pretty high.
Yeah, I'd give it a 7.5 because like it's really entertaining. It was really enjoyable. I like I wouldn't like it was moving enough, but I wouldn't say I was like fully attached to like all of the characters. I think that's where the movie's somewhat lacking, where I didn't feel too invested in the characters. Like they to me they felt more like chess pieces. Um, so in that way, like I think that's one area where they could have developed it a bit. Um, and also like the whole romance side of it, they could have just touched upon that a bit more. How about you?
I would say maybe closer to seven, just a seven. Just because like I would say this is a good movie and I would definitely like recommend it, but I can see the reason like I really enjoyed the movie was because of the hype I had for Dhanush. Like I can see that the movie isn't perfect basically. It definitely has its flaws, and for me to put it any higher, like for it to be an 8, it needs to hit a higher rankings on everything. So, for example, I would say like pacing, like it was fast, but then some bits were a bit skipped out, which kind of made you feel like, oh, this is happening now.
No, I agree with you on that. Like some bits, like it was like some bits felt very like very well explained, or like somewhat even overly explained, i.e.,
Yeah.
like funeral, wedding bits. Like I was a little bit lost with that, but I was like, I'm just going along with the ride.
Other than that, like yeah, it's like the scenes where you just needed to get comfortable with like the English and like
Mm.
it's just like that initial awkwardness. So that's one of the other reasons why I can't give it higher than a 7, because like it's not the perfect movie in that sense. But the
Alright.
reason why it's so high is because it was still entertaining. Like I still would recommend it. It was fun to watch. I liked like the like some of the humor at the start, for example. Like when he's gonna get married or something, and then
Oh yeah.
the mother's like, apparently you're a rowdy. They're saying.
Yeah. I really liked how they did that. Like that was quite like
It was that
like
was like a
powerful.
very funny scene. Like
Mm.
he's just like shouting, like, drunk. Apparently you're rowdy, and the next scene is like, oh, she's not gonna, she's basically run away, isn't it? She's not gonna get married to you. And then
Mm.
it's like so sad, and then he's like just laughing.
Like I liked how the humor didn't feel forced. Like it was more like the humor was done through dialogue,
Yeah,
rather than they had like a whole set piece for like the comedy scenes or anything like that. It was just like a character might throw in a one liner or like a comeback, and it's just like a little like haha. I think like sometimes it works. Like sometimes you get like some really funny moments and you can remember those set pieces like properly. But then other times it just feels completely out of place and you're just why are you bothering like take me back to the main story. Whereas with this movie in particular, like the way they did the comedy, like it just seemed a little bit more natural. There aren't really many bits where I can like think back and just be like, oh, that bit was so funny, or that bit is more like more like one line. I think also one thing maybe we didn't really highlight as much was they did London in a way like it played with the story. It wasn't like these characters are abroad for the sake of being abroad.
Oh yeah.
And like I think one movie that came to mind was like in Jeans, for instance. At the start of the movie, like the main characters are in America, but then when you think about it, there's no real reason for these guys to be in America. They could just be an affluent family in another part of India. It's just they did that just for the sake of it. Whereas here, like they did London in a way like you see it in a different angle. Like they didn't do scenes like in front of like national landmarks and stuff like that. Like they literally had scenes in front of like a residential road or by the beach. And
Yeah.
you're like, eh.
Yeah, when they first showed London, I don't know why, I just got so hyped. I was like, oh, look, it's London.
My brother was like that because he was like, "Oh my God, that's Margate. They filmed it in Margate," and we are like, "Oh, cool." And he's like, "Oh, that's Kent," and I was like, "Yeah." Like I like how they did that. Whereas like it's not like in your face. It's just like a bit more subtle. And then there's only the songs where they get a bit more like fancy with it.
Do you have any finalizing points?
Finalizing points. Okay. I think finalizing points was that I liked the fact that this movie was a bit more out there, and I'm not surprised if some people, especially some older generations, would not enjoy this movie.
Oh, do you think so?
I know, for instance, my dad and my mum, they weren't fans of it.
Oh,
And
really?
especially like my dad, he was talking in the background and he was just like, oh, they're just, um, he was like, oh, they're just using the whole Sri Lankan civil war as just more as like a excuse, as so more as a jumping off point to come up with these like more
It's interesting. I feel like either he didn't see the movie properly because it was almost the opposite of what he's saying in terms of they were trying to use the movie to show that rather than the other way around.
I think because like for them in particular, because like they've lived through it and it is a very serious.
You know, that's actually what I was thinking when the serious scene came on. I was like, isn't this gonna be really traumatic for the people that actually went through it? And I was like, it seems so real that I feel like the people who went through it would find this scene very uncomfortable to sit through. Like, and that made me feel uncomfortable just realizing that.
Yeah, I think like the fact that like they mixed a gangster story with this like Sri Lankan civil war backbone. Like I think I can see why some people would find that a little bit jarring and a bit uncomfortable. So I wouldn't be too surprised in that regard. But overall, I think for me, I found the movie like on an entertainment value. Like I enjoyed it, and I liked the fact that they had that backbone with that seriousness within it. So yeah, for me, yeah, it was a good movie, and you know, it's just a good reminder to see that when Tamil movies are abroad, they really can't do dubbing properly.
I don't know what it is, but wait, won't the actors themselves speak though, or are they just really bad actors? I'm just confused.
So I know like the villain Peter guy. I think that's
Yeah, he was fine. I'm talking about the others.
yeah, but every single other little side character, it was like
They was just so bad.
it felt so weird. Like I was like, what is going on? Like why does it sound so off? Like
Yeah.
until when I see that one Tamil movie which has perfect dubbing across all actors, that movie would automatically be like 11 out of 10.
Yeah, you know, when I watched the trailer for this, like that was like really worrying me about this movie. Like how is this even gonna go?
Like I knew instantly when I saw that teaser trailer, and like I think the first person who speaks in that trailer is like an Englishman asking about Surali, and it sounds really weird.
And then you get like this proper Indian accent, like of the guy saying, "Oh, Surili is."
As soon as I saw that, I was like, all right, it's gonna be this kind of movie.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, at first my reaction was like, but then like the next scene is like the lady asking, "Oh, are you Tamil?" And then the guy Dhanush saying, "Yeah, if I'm Tamil, then I'm from Sri Lanka." Like like how he says that, and I was like, okay, yeah, maybe this movie is good.
I think that one like where she goes, "Oh, are you Tamil?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm from Tamil Nadu." Like that means I'm Tamil, and she's like, "Not really." Like that little exchange kind of just explained like Danish's whole ignorance to the whole situation, and it was just a good little exchange they had.
Yeah. It's a bit creepy how he was chasing after her, isn't it? In the first scene, it's like, and then she's like, "Who is this like creep coming up to me, like saying I love you, like you just met me?"
And he's like, "Oh, I want to marry you," and then then instantly like they go on like a little date as well. No, like that, like the whole love scene. Yeah, again, that's something that they do need to develop on, but it wasn't like the worst in the world.
I don't think I have anything else to say, so good talk.
Yeah, no, this is a good chat.
Okay.
All right, cool.